My name is Abdullah Boubkiri, and I belong to Mohammed First University English Department. I'm so happy to be here with you in this beautiful place and meet a lot of distinguished scholars and many friends. And I'm also pleased to moderate this session, which is going to be about technology and its integration in education. And I think that this is the timely issue, and it's not that easy to discuss it within just 1 hour, because it's a thorny issue and it has engendered a lot of discussions. So what we'll have here, just some perspectives from different parts. And I'll be having here 4 speakers. 3 of them belong to Waterfall University in Kenitra, and the other speaker is from here. She belongs to this university, and I think that we'll be starting with her. Her name is Dr. Fatima Hamdi, and her presentation is entitled Technology in Education, an instructional websites for Introduction to Linguistics course at University Mohammed V. The floor is yours. You have about 15 minutes. Less than that, but no more than that.
Oh, it's working right now. Thank you. Okay, so thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like first to thank the organizing committee for giving me the chance to present in this special event, which pays tribute to former professors of mine. So thank you. These are the points we're going to cover in my talk. We're going first to see what the project is about. So we're going to describe it. We're going to have an overview of the project. We're going to discuss the methodology we adopted in designing the instructional tool and in incorporating the ICT in education. We're going to discuss the type of assessment we use in this study, and we're going to have the last version that has been published of the project or of the website. All right, so the project is an experiment on ICT integration in the teaching of Introduction to Linguistics course to S4 students at Mohammed V University in Rabat. It consists in developing an educational website which aims at helping students maximize their learning outcomes, presenting an online resource which ensures access to a larger number of students to the overall components of the course, and it offering a sustained integration of ICT in higher education, furthering or emphasizing the learner-centered approach. Right, so the methodology that has been used in both constructing the instructional tool and incorporating ICT in education is the Agile methodology. Now, the term Agile has been originally used in the document Manifesto for Agile Software Development, which defines a set of principles of how to develop a software in better ways. Now, we're going to see in a later slide some of these principles that have been presented in the original document and how they are applied to education. Now, the motivation behind choosing the Agile methodology in constructing the instructional tool or the design and in implementing ICT in education is that first, the requirements of a project are hard to predict in advance, and they might change as the project proceeds. Second, the construction of a project might encounter difficulties which would force changes in the design at any point in the development of the project itself. And third, analysis, design, construction, and testing are very hard to predict at the very beginning of each project. Now, as a result of these motivations, an Agile cycle is highly preferable than a waterfall cycle. And we're going to see an example of a model which adopts a waterfall cycle. Now, instead of having a strict sequence of phases that a waterfall cycle might have, we adopt the Agile methodology in which the phases are flexible and can be worked on in parallel. This is an example of a waterfall development model, which is the ADDI model. It is it's well known, old and flexible, but it works in one direction and not in a parallel way. To make modifications, for example, the developer needs to go back to a phase. So the design and development, for example, the design and development phases cannot go hand in hand, but they go step by step instead. So ultimately, you can't fully implement the project until you fully analyzed, designed, developed the project itself. Now, the Agile methods, or the Agile methodology, on the other hand, encourages a smooth and continuous incorporation of changes at any time, even when the project has already been implemented. Now, let's present the phases of the Agile lifecycle. So we have the requirements analysis, in which requirements are identified, and here we talk about the information about who will use the product, and in our case we talk about the website or the instructional tool that we are using and how they are going to use it, and so on and so forth. We have the planning phase, and that includes working in an iterative way, that is working on chunks of the project rather than working on the project as a whole. The design phase, the development phase, in which the project is implemented rapidly, immediately after planning and designing one chunk of the project, or one part of the project. Testing, in which the produced version is tested to check whether it meets the requirements needs. And that's when you get the feedback from the users of the project itself. And here we talk about students who use the website or instructors who might use the website. Deployment, and at this point the product is delivered to the students to be used, but this is not the end of the project. It can be only a partial delivery, and new requirements analysis could come. Now, earlier versions of the website serve as functioning prototypes, with the students playing the role of the client in the original use of the Agile methodology. Some of the advantages of the Agile methodology are that it is iterative and incremental, rather than requiring exhaustive a priori planning at the beginning of the project. It provides an effective way to measure the outcomes by receiving the feedback from the users of the project, and it is adaptive to the needs of the users at any point in the development of the project, and people-oriented rather than predictive and process-oriented. Now, Agile methods, or Agile methodology, was originally used in software engineering courses, but then they proved to be effective in teaching other courses such as mathematics, for example. Now, the Agile methods, or the Agile methodology, has been projected to the classroom environment, in which they value students over traditional processes and tools, working projects over comprehensive documentation, student and instructor collaboration over rigid course syllabi, and responding to feedback rather than following a strict and rigid plan. Now, one type of assessment that has been conducted in this experiment, and which goes hand in hand with the Agile methodologies in the project, is the formative evaluation. So, continuous feedback on the web development and on the pedagogical content has been collected through questioning at a weekly basis during the whole semester. Based on that feedback and following the Agile methodology, additions or changes in the design and sometimes in the content, the course content, have been incorporated into the website at a regular basis. And this has helped build the course in small iterations through constant review processes. Now, this is what I wouldn't call it the final version of the project, but I would call it the last version of the project that has been published. So this is the homepage, and in addition to the homepage, we have, I don't know if it's clear to you. So the other page is referred to as phonetics, phonology, morphology, syntax, semantics, pragmatics, references, and the contact us page. Now, in the home page, we have information about the website, about the author, about the main linguistic components, which briefly define what each linguistic discipline is about. And then we have, in each page, or in each main page, we have subpages, which cover or which are about the main components that we cover in each linguistic component itself. Now, the content that has been used in each of these pages might be YouTube videos, for example, or texts written by the author, which help give extra resources to students to help them get a grasp of the components that we covered in class. Now, this is an example of the content we have in the main page, and then in each sub-page, we have activities related to that component in particular with different levels of difficulty. So we have different sub-pages for each component of linguistics that we are supposed to cover in class. Now, this is the Contact Us page. So whoever uses the website can send feedback or comments to the developer of the website just by entering his or her name, email address, and whatever comment they might have. Now, we used basically this page for receiving some of the feedback that helped us, or that has helped us, building or constructing the last version we have here. Right. Now, to conclude, Agile methodology helps in identifying strengths, not only strengths and weaknesses of the projects on the projects, but also they provide insight into the learning process. This, we believe that this has ultimately resulted into providing additional online resource and better delivery of the pedagogical content and better achievements of the learning outcomes. Now, finally, the project constitutes a way of implementing ICT in higher education, reinforcing the learner-centered approach. Now, before thanking you for your attention, I would like highly to thank a colleague of mine and a former professor of mine, Karim, Professor Karim Boussoukas. Hadn't he helped me dealing with or discovering instructional tools or technological tools, I wouldn't have been able to do this project. So thank you, Karim, for teaching me how to do this. I wouldn't have done it if it weren't for your help. And thank you all for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Hamdi, for sharing with us this interesting presentation. And also, for sparing us about 5 minutes. We can use them, during the time of discussions, yeah? So basically, she has, tried to walk us through, the multiple features of this website in which, teachers can teach linguistics through, computer-assisted or technology-assisted instruction. So I don't know, what's the name of this website, because it's really useful. It looks very useful to me.
It's actually a Google site.
Okay.
And it's called Introduction to Linguistics. You need the link actually to access the website.
Okay.
Because it's just a Google site.
All right. Maybe I will request it from you later. Okay. Thank you so much. Now we'll move to the next presenter, who is Ms. Buteyna Gibba, okay, and she is going to talk about assessing the effectiveness of computer-assisted language learning on learning grammar. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. It's working now. Thank you. So hello everyone, honored and pleased to be among you today and to contribute in this insightful academic event by talking about assessing the effectiveness of computer-assisted language learning on learning grammar. So basically this is the outline of my presentation. I'll be talking about the theoretical framework by defining COL and its advantages in education. Then I'll move to talk about the methodological part of this study, which has made this presentation, and the finding, and I'll be also discussing the findings of my research. So first, as we all know, due to the influence of technology and also due to the influence of technology on education, the relationship between language ability and also the use of computers has gained greater interest and attention during the last decade. So the computer-mediated communication and the internet have reshaped the use of computers in language learning. Now computers are no longer seen as, let's say, mediums or as information processing programs only, but they are also used in language education. They are considered as information processing, information and communication processing displays in education. So the influence of technology in language learning has made computer-assisted language learning the widely used technology-based teaching and learning system. Computer-assisted language learning, also called COL, it refers to the use of computer as an aid to present, reinforce, and assess the materials going to be learned. And here we talk, of course, about the role of the teacher. It is very essential and important to know that COL did not come to eliminate the role of the teacher. COL is here to supplement the face-to-face language instruction to make it better. COL has been termed differently by different scholars in the field. Some of them refer to it as technology-enhanced language learning, others as computer-assisted language instruction, or computer-aided language learning. The combination of computer-mediated communication into foreign language classrooms helps in the presentation, the justification, and the assessment of the materials in language teaching and learning. And when we talk about computer-mediated communication, we talk about, of course, the use of the internet. So the combination of the internet with computer, of course now internet we know has become a pedagogical tool that is necessary in language teaching and in language instruction. So the combination of this internet and computer use can really foster the language instruction process. What is really significant about COL is that it is an interactive method of instruction that helps learners achieve their goals of learning at their own pace and ability. This entails that COL provides an individual interactive experience in which learners take their ownership of their own learning, so they work at their own pace. Fast learners or low learners, they have the responsibility of their own learning. Here we can say that the computer, it includes all the aspects of, or the COL, it includes all the aspects of the computer implementations in technology, in language learning. So it is there to tutor learners. It is there to guide them during the learning process or during a specific task. It is there to assess the learner's reply, record it, point the mistakes, and provide feedback at the end. So basically or generally, COL instruction or COL cues fall into two major categories: the software or the internet-based activities. For softwares, they are programs that are designed for language learning purposes, of course. So normally here learners are introduced or are provided with a brief introduction about the specific item that they are studying, followed by a series of questions that they need to reply to, and then the computer provides feedback about that. Or we have the internet-based activities, which vary considerably, of course, from, let's say, online versions of softwares to computer-mediated communication, to applications that combine both in a form of drills and also games to make learning more enjoyable and more fun. Well, as far as the theoretical framework of CAL is not a newborn. CAL has begun in the 1960s. It has developed with the development of the teaching methodologies. But what is even significant to mention is that CAL has witnessed two different waves. The first wave has focused on the use of word processing. The focus was on improving the writing skill. So the focus was on the text length, the text quality and quantity, and also the grammar checkers. The second wave, on the other hand, focused more on the internet. Computer-mediated communication appeared with the arrival of the internet. When we talk about computer-mediated communication, we talk simply about the ability to communicate between individuals using computer networks. CAL has been said or has been claimed that it has undergone three different stages: the behavioristic CAL, the communicative CAL, and the integrative CAL. With the behavioristic CAL, students or computers did not allow students to work at their own pace. So the focus was more on repetitive drills. Then comes the communicative CAL, which has elaborated more forms, and the focus here was on what students were doing with each other while working on the computer rather than what they did in the computer. Then comes the interactive CAL, which has provided a wide range of technological activities that are considered as an ongoing process of language learning. In the literature has advocated, of course, the use of CAL, stating that it promotes practices and reinforces the curriculum. It is regarded as a medium for education thanks to its ability to help students interact with their classmates or with the computer itself, with the machine itself. Also, CAL has been praised for improving the acquisition of knowledge, developing the learner's critical faculties, promoting visual, verbal, and kinesthetic learning, and also fostering higher level thinking skills and problem solving. So we can say that the body of literature has advocated the effectiveness of teaching using Pratt in teaching various language skills, including reading, writing, vocabulary, and pronunciation. So this study basically, it focuses or it puts emphasis on assessing the effectiveness of CAL in teaching grammar or in grammar learnability. The rationale behind this study is mainly 3 points. First, we all know that the use of computer in language teaching is increasing, so it is very necessary to establish this research-based indications of the appropriate use of CAL so that we can make use of it in curriculum and in instruction. Second thing, also the body of literature has advocated the establishment of grammar instruction, and it says that grammar instruction, it fosters and facilitates second or foreign language acquisition. And by talking about methods of teaching, CAL has become a method of teaching, so it is really necessary to evaluate it. And taking into account that CAL is rich in terms of its input and it is based on meaningful interaction, classroom activities should concentrate on providing these opportunities that CAL actually calls for. Now, as far as the purpose of this study, it aims to evaluate the effectiveness of CAL in teaching or on grammar instruction, in comparing the teacher-directed grammar instruction on the acquisition of Concord agreement among Moroccan EFL learners, and it also examines any statistical difference between the conventional teaching method only compared with teaching supplemented with CAL. As we said, CAL is not there to replace the teacher. So we are comparing a classroom based on conventional teaching-directed context with a classroom based on conventional teaching plus the use of CAL as an instructive aid. This research question tends to answer one basic question, which is there a statistically significant difference in the acquisition of Concord agreement grammatical forms among Moroccan EFL learners in a traditional teacher-directed classroom setting as compared with a computerized teaching context? As far as the research design of this study is concerned, this study is experimental in nature. It has therefore opted for two groups, the control group and the experimental group. The control group received or has sat for the pre-test and the post-test with no treatment, which means conventional teaching, and while the experimental group has sat for a pre-test and then the treatment, and then has sat for another post-test to assess the improvement using that treatment. As far as the participants who took part in this study, they are S1 English department students, of course, from Ibn Tufan University. So as you see here, the experimental group has been instructed using printed text material plus online integrated digital skills. The online integrated digital skills were in form of online websites and all platforms, and also applications like quizzes, like Padlet, like Kahoot, and like WordWall. The control group did not actually experience any type of interaction of the online integrated digital tasks in during their learning or acquisition process. So they were instructed using printed text material only. Now this is an example of a website that I have been using since ever. So it is called WordWall. In case you don't have an account, all you have to do is to sign up. When you sign up, this actually window will pop up. So all what you have to do is to click on first activity. Then users are provided with multiple templates that they can use so as to design their own tasks, exercises, or quizzes. So for example, I will opt for a quiz. When you click on it, this is what appears to you. So in this window, you need to write the title of the item to be tested. So as to guide students, of course, and so that they have a better understanding of what they are doing, in fact. So this is what appears to you as a teacher. When you finish writing the items, the user should not forget to tick the correct answer so that the computer provides feedback at the end. So this is what appears to you as a teacher, and this is what appears to students as learners at the end of the process of designing or developing this material. As far as the data presentation is concerned, so I have used a t-test, which means there was a pre-test, treatment, and a post-test. Now consider table 1 and let's look at the pre-test scores. Now if you pay attention here, we can see that the pre-scores or the mean scores of the pre-test of the experimental and the control group are not really statistically different. So there is no significant difference in terms of this. But when we go to the post-test, and if we look closely or if we have a look at the mean scores of the post-test of both the experimental group and the control group, we can find that there is a significant difference in terms of the mean scores, which means that CALL is really effective in promoting or in learning Concord agreement. So this means that in the pre-test, students had the same background knowledge about Concord agreement before implementing the experiment. And after the experiment, though the control group has actually improved, but not as much as the experimental group in learning Concord agreement. And this, of course, leads us to say, first, there is a positive effect of CALL on grammar learnability. CALL is significant thanks to its variety in the resources available and the learning styles it offers. So CALL provides learners with the opportunity to employ their 5 senses. All the websites, all the applications are full of music, colors, pictures, animation, and sounds that attract their attention and empower their faculties of retention. CALL enables learners to work according to their own pace, as we said. CALL fosters engagement and autonomy. CALL applies learning by doing, which is one of the basic 21st century skills, which is real-life skill building using computer. CALL advocates the fun factor. Though they were university students, they enjoyed the experience. This means that fun has no definite age group. The computer is the servant of the user. The user is the teacher. So here again we are promoting the idea that CALL is not eliminating the teacher. CALL is the servant of the teacher. So yes, call changes sometimes radically the role of the teacher, but does not eliminate the need for a teacher altogether. Students too, they need to adjust their expectations of their participation in the class in order to use call effectively. This means that rather than passively absorbing information, learners are there to negotiate meaning and assimilate new information through interaction and collaboration with someone other than the teacher, be it another classmate in a group work activity or with the computer itself. And before ending the presentation, I'll leave you with a list of websites and also applications that you can make use in your designing of specific lessons or instructional materials. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Bouteyna Giba, for this instructive presentation and for also sticking to the allotted time. She basically talked about, or she gave us general introduction about the call, which is computer-assisted language learning. And she insisted on the fact that this call cannot replace the teacher, but it just can supplement the role of teachers. Then she moved to a brief discussion about the usefulness and the feasibility of this call in the teaching of grammar, focusing on many aspects of grammar, but I was hoping that she would focus on the communicative dimension of grammar. So maybe you can think about this in the discussion. How can this call or this website help you to teach grammar in a communicative way? So the next presentation is going to be delivered by Ms. Zakia Malik, and it's entitled ICT Integration in Language Education.
كاين في البيسي هكذا كذا يسولتك انا دابا
Thank you.
اش هادي اللي قال لي الاستاذ هادي
ICT, yes. Thank you so much.
مرحبا ولكن
Good afternoon, everyone. So, first of all, let me tell you that I'm very, very happy this afternoon to be among you in this enlightening event. I'm very, very honored to be one of the presenters in this promising conference. Okay. And my sincere thanks goes to the committee, the organizing committee of this conference, and all the professors. My presentation or my paper will tackle ICT integration in language education. Okay, so information communications technology or information communication technologies, so we can use them interchangeably. So it will tackle the paramount roles and advantages of information communications technology, both for the paramount role, so both for teachers, okay, and the students as well, and to what extent they contribute in the career and the personal development of the teacher and the learning enhancement of students. So let's begin with the introduction. So the content before. So my presentation will sketch the following axes or sections. We have the introduction, ICT identification, ICT integration forms in language education, ICT role and advantages for students, ICT role and advantages for teachers, ICT learning benefits during COVID-19 pandemic lockdown, teachers' attitude towards ICT implementation, teacher strategies for ICT integration, existing challenges, and then the conclusion. So, let's see the introduction. So, as universal language, English indubitably unifies the globe. A significant deal of such unification is ascribed to the insertion of information communications technology that has become an integral part of our daily life and of our language classrooms as well. The use of ICT in language learning maximizes a lot of opportunities for an effective communication for both tutors and pupils, not only to develop their language skills, but also to broaden their knowledge of using it successfully for a better teaching and learning. So let's start with the first section, which will tackle information communication technology identification. So we have a quote by Mary Barrett. ICT, or information and communications technology, or technologies as I have already said, is the infrastructure and the components that enable modern computing. And look at the word infrastructure, how it is highlighted and underlined to imply the variety and the diversity of the used and inserted devices and the different tools in order to integrate ICT in language education. I'm sorry. So information and communication technologies, ICT, is defined as a diverse set of technological tools and resources used to transmit, store, create, share, or exchange information. Okay, so these are the different tasks ICT perform. Okay, now number 2, ICT integration forms in language education. ICT tools and resources include computers, the internet, websites, blogs, and emails, live broadcasting technologies like radio, television, and webcasting, recorded broadcasting technologies such as podcasting, audio and video players, and storage devices, and telephony, including fixed or mobile, satellite, visual video, conferencing, etc. Now, so let's discuss ICT role and advantages for pupils. Mobile-assisted language learning, computer-assisted language learning, technology-enhanced language learning, and e-learning have been increasingly used in English language classroom. So teachers resort to these methods, to these teaching techniques in order to synchronize the ongoing trends and update their teaching methods. ICT match students' needs in enhancing their digital and literacy skills, promotes for communication in an interactive context, and thanks to ICT, learning is transformed from an archaic, dull experience to another fresh one, full of excitement and discovery, within a less stressful virtual simulating context, in which pupils participate actively with the ICT as an effective mediator. It contributes as well to alleviate and to lessen the inhibition or reluctance to express their viewpoints freely. Enables students to communicate fluently, develop their critical thinking, learn with much ease and high motivation. And also harnesses their composing, responding, viewing, representing, and researching in English. Students are thus able to write, read, speak, listen, and react to a conversation using ICT as part of the language learning process. Now let's move on to ICT role and advantages and explore them for the teachers. English language learning and teaching methodologies have undergone several changes throughout the last years, moving from a traditional grammar translation method to more student-centered methods such as total physical response, communicative language teaching, and task-based learning, which are more popular among language teachers. And of course, teachers have already given up these, let's say, traditional methods in order to adopt new ones, okay? Teachers consider ICT as a practical tool, a wealthy resource of valuable data and knowledge. ICT helps demolish all teaching and learning borders, create fun in teaching and learning operations, and it is, of course, a self-assessment tool that keeps both teachers and pupils engaged. The fifth X, ICT learning benefits during COVID-19 pandemic lockdown. The growing with online activities using a smooth combination of technology-based tools and teaching success rests upon the correct insertion of ICT in ELT, and that's what's happened during the lockdown of the COVID-19 pandemic. Teachers in the lockdown resorted to the blended language learning, deployed diverse methods by gathering virtual live classes. It offered opportunity for collaboration as between peers as a pair work, and also cooperate with native and non-native speakers around the world. Students, hence, seize the opportunity also for a better insight into the culture of the country and people whose language they study. Sixth section, or X, teachers' attitude towards ICT implementation. So in a blended learning environment that uses ICT tools, it is easier for the language tutor to use different approaches with students and accommodate various learning styles and the different needs for fast, slow, or handicapped language learners. It also creates flexibility to remotely access non-students and teachers' schedules. It assists teachers in getting more aware of the modernized world and meet the current demands of the new era. Teachers' use of authentic materials incorporates, as an instance, online newspapers, webcasts, podcasts, newsroom video clips, or even video sharing websites like such as, say, or YouTube. Now, let's discover together the teachers' strategies for ICT integration in language education in general, and notably in English language education. So technology integrated learning requires certain strategies to make it effective in learners' learning and teachers' professional development. In this regard, White and Gray have presented the following strategies. Teachers must have the knowledge of the subject first. They should appeal to all learning styles. They should facilitate the content. They have to create platforms for learning. The course documents should be available to every student. They have to communicate clear goals. Teachers can establish social networking. They have to list the course pathways. They need to make effective usage of available resources, and they should mention the clear expectations and establish a supportive community. The last X in this presentation will tackle the existing challenges, and of course, we have still some shortcomings and limitations in using ICT or inserting ICT in language education. Okay? So the first challenge, is the lack of ICT insertion in language education in rural areas, in suburbs, in villages and remote countrysides around the cities, difficulties in infrastructure development, limited accessibility, as I have already mentioned, of materials and internet connections as well, limited technical support, problems in time management, okay, of the teacher, rigid curricular, so when the teacher is has to abide by a strict curricular, lack of teachers' effective training in IT. Conclusion, information communications technology has proven to be ultimately beneficial to language learners while learning a second or foreign language. The swift development in technology has led to the improvement of ICT, which is thought to offer new chances to promote for the quality and effectiveness of foreign language teaching and learning. Thus, integrating ICT and ELT has become both a slogan and a selection in both developed and developing countries. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Ms. Zakia Malik, for this informative
welcome.
presentation,
You're welcome.
in which you basically talk about different aspects of the integration of technology in language teaching, focused on challenges and methodologies, teachers' attitudes, and many other topics related to the integration of technology in language teaching. Now we move to the last speaker, last but not least, and his presentation is entitled to word comprehension. Is it comprehension and pronunciation? Yeah. Okay, we'll say, okay, what is it going to be about? Learn and teach pronunciation with the CAPT. Is it computer assisted? PT, I don't know what that stands for. So we have many things to discover with the last speaker, Mr. Mohammed Smirko. So you have about 15 minutes. The floor is yours.
Thank you. So, good afternoon, everyone. It's my privilege to be among you and to contribute to this event by talking about the application of CAPT in teaching and learning pronunciation. So, as you can see, my presentation is entitled towards comprehension, learn and teach pronunciation with CAPT. And this presentation is structured as follows. We'll start first by the theoretical framework in which this study was adopted or was coached in. Then we'll move to talk about the methodology, and we shall finish by talking about some implications of this study. Well, so I have used the word comprehension to refer to computer software programs and applications that are used in language or in teaching and learning pronunciation. So the word comprehension is a combination of computer and pronunciation. So simply it refers to software programs and applications that are used in teaching and learning pronunciation. So traditionally, pronunciation was taught through drills and hinges on teachers' feedback. Okay, however, with computer aided teaching, a lot of softwares and applications open the analysis to visual medium and visual measurement of acoustic properties of sounds. So in the 14s, the teaching of pronunciation was greatly stressed, but taught through imitation drills, pattern practice, and dialogue or conversation memorization. However, in the 17s, the teaching of pronunciation was largely ignored with development of communicative approach, which has focused more on fluency rather than accuracy or form. And in the late 18s, pronunciation was a key ingredient in the development of communicative competence, a more balanced approach that valued both accuracy and fluency was introduced into teaching and education in Jordan. So this study is conducted within the framework of computer-assisted language learning, or CAL, which simply refers to or advocates the integration of technology in teaching and learning language in general. So CAL, when it comes to pronunciation, CAL helps in detecting pronunciation or errors in pronunciation, locate the errors, and provide corrective feedback to those errors. So CAL systems that focus on pronunciation and speech are called computer-assisted pronunciation training, or CAPT. So with CAPT, learners are exposed to oral demonstration. CAPT also provides virtual interaction with native speakers. Okay. And also it provides the possibility and opportunity to extend learning outside the classroom. So learning is not limited only when the teacher is available in the classroom. So this study tries to address the following research problem. So learners, at least beginners, encounter some difficulties in mastering the English pronunciation, and this is due to some challenging. So as you know, pronunciation is the most challenging aspect of mastering a foreign language, and another challenge is the contrast or the difference between the target language, which is English, and the mother tongue. So there is a contrast between the two systems. As you know, in English, for example, we have different vowels. We have there are long, short vowels. We have also diphthongs and so on. But in Moroccan Arabic, or in the mother tongue of learners, only 4 or 3 vowels are attested, and ashwa as well. Also, another problem or challenge for learners is the irregularities of orthography representation. So as you can, or as you know, there is no relation between spelling and sound in English, and we have some examples here: tween and twine. So it's the same. Okay, it's the same letter, but it is produced or articulated differently. And again, we have the same. Sometimes we have the same sound, but it is spelled differently, and this can cause some difficulty in mastering English pronunciation, as I said, at least for beginners. So this study testifies the following hypothesis: there is no significant effect of CAPT on Moroccan learners' English pronunciation improvement, and there is a significant effect of CAPT on Moroccan learners' English pronunciation development. So generally, this study tries to explore and show how CAPT improves teaching pronunciation. So the 40 Moroccan learners belonging to semester 1 students at Ibn Tufayl University took part in this study. So the study was quasi-experimental, and the participants of this study were randomly divided into experimental group and control group. So after the pre-test, the experimental group received the treatment, which is using or being instructed through CAPT, while the control group did not receive any treatment, which means the same materials were presented by traditionally without the use of CAPT. Okay. So to determine whether sample data has been drawn from a normally distribution population, we ran 2 normality tests called Kolmogorov-Smirnov, and Shapiro-Wilk. So these are two tests for normality, and also to see and to ensure if there is if there is any, if the population was normally distributed or not. So the result obtained from, as you can see, the result obtained shows that the score distribution is normal. That is to say, the significance is greater than the p value. So the value of normality of the pretest in the experimental group and even in the control group is greater than 0.05. So which means that the sample is normally distributed. To identify if there is any significant difference between the two groups in the pretest, and also to ensure homogeneity of the sample of the study, an independent sample t-test is run, and the result, as you can see, the result has reported an equal distribution of t, which is less than the critical t 1.6 value, which indicate that there is no significant difference between the experimental group and the control group in terms of the pretest scores. And to see if the difference in post-test scores is significant or not, so as to be able to measure the effectiveness of CAPT, we run again a sample t-test, but this time for post-test. Okay, the result shows that the observed, you can see the observed t is greater than the critical t value, so therefore the groups are significantly different. Now we turn to see some examples of CAPT, and we show how they can be used. We started by Pratt. So Pratt is an open source caustic analysis software. So Pratt opens an analysis to the visual medium or visual measurement of caustic properties. It can be used to visually represent sounds. So these are some of many institutions which have at least once or used or using Pratt as a part of their teaching curricula. We can see field methods at the University of Oklahoma, graduate phonetics at the University of Pennsylvania, to name but few. So now we will turn to see how Pratt, or how users can use Pratt. So after downloading Pratt and opening it, as you can see in Figure 1, the first step is recording. So students or users can record speech by selecting record mono sound or stereo. From the new menu menu of the Pratt object window. After saving, you can click here to save. So after saving to the list, the acoustic signal is computed by clicking on View and Edit, and you can get such visual representation. So here is an example of word stress. We have the example of record and record. So here, by using this visual representation, students can easily and can visually see the difference between record and record. And you know that stressed syllable and unstressed syllable differs in terms of vowel duration, in terms of intensity, and in terms of pitch. So as you can see here, so it's visually seen that the second syllable is the stressed syllable, because you can see that the pitch is rising, while in record you can see that the second syllable the pitch is falling down, which means that stress falls on the first syllable. Here is an example, okay, an example of one of the participants. So you can see that in the first start, so here we have the word develop, where stress, okay, is fallen on the second syllable, which is not correct. So you can see that by seeing this visual, learners can identify their errors. So after recording and computing their utterance, so the next stage is speech analysis and comparison with native speakers' utterance. So the next step is to compare the utterance with native speakers. If it matches, so it's fine. If not, then the next they move to the next phase, okay, or the next stage, where they have to identify their problems in the last phase. And in the last phase, they self-correct their utterance and until they reach the optimal output. Notes that this learning strategy is cyclic. That is to say, learners can keep repeating, recording, and computing their utterance until they reach the optimal, or until their output is optimized. Okay. Now we move to see another learning pronunciation application, and this time it's an application.
Please, you have 1 minute left.
1 minute.
Yeah, if you can wrap up, okay.
Okay, I'll try. So the second application is English file pronunciation app. It's encourage students to learn and practice sound words and sentences in context. And by the way, these applications can be also used in doing research for those who do research in phonetics and phonology. So it's a good way to represent the data and the utterance. So in this application, we have different activities. As you can see here, we have the sounds in teaching, for example, spoken English. You can see here we have the sounds with some pictures, so it's more it's more authentic. You have another activity which is to have each sound either in isolation or in a sentence. This application offers another activity which is recording. So students can record their speech and compare it with native speakers. Another activity is sound identification or contrast. So learners can listen to words in isolation, and they have to choose the correct sound. Another activity is they have words presented in isolation, and they have to tick the correct transcription. One more activity: users are presented with words in isolation.
Please, your time is over. If you can just jump to the conclusion.
Okay.
You are 1 minute behind schedule.
Okay, so these are other software and apps that can be used to either to teach pronunciation or to learn pronunciation. So generally, there is a positive effect of the application of CAPT on improving students' vowel length, pronunciation, and stress. The students who were instructed using CAPT outperformed the students who were taught using just drills. Students in computerized environment appear to be less anxious and be more active and enjoy learning. So generally, CAPT has benefited a lot in teaching and learning pronunciation. So the students managed to develop their pronunciation because they receive immediate corrective feedback. And thank you.
Okay, thank you for sharing with us the result of a case study from Ibn Tufayl University. and also for sharing with us some online resources on how to integrate technology in the
Yes.
teaching of pronunciation. Thank
And
you for that. I'm sorry for being harsh with you.
for interrupting you. This is an example used. They use the same application. It's Oxford University Press. So either when you are teaching or learning, you can just click on the sound you would like to present.
Okay, they can request, okay, from you, okay, the links if they need that. Thank you so much for that. Now, I'm so sorry, okay, for being harsh,
it's
okay,
okay.
on time, because we are already behind schedule. We were
Yes.
supposed to stop at 5:45, and it's almost 5:45. So we still need, okay, to debate or discuss some points. So I will, okay, open the floor now for discussion, and I'll be collecting just 4 questions. A question for each speaker, if it's possible, please. So, okay, for whom? Third?
Mr. Mohammed.
All right. Yeah. Is there anybody who has a question before we move to the answering session? Yes, Professor? Yeah. You can just ask your question.
Okay,
Yes.
so I'm sorry, I wish I could ask everybody.
They are interlinked, I think. All of the presentation, they have something in common.
All right, thank you. My question is to Fatima. So, a comment and a question. The comment is the videos you have used all come from YouTube. I think that probably you may want to consider having videos of your own. It will take longer, but I think it will be more interesting to whoever the website is designed for. The second question is, you went over the activities that you suggested. I think that probably the only tool that is available is Google Forms. So I don't know what kind of activities do you have lined up or that you still think of including?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Is there any other question? Okay, maybe I have a question, okay, for all of you, okay? Yeah, it's about, okay, the theoretical, okay, methodology that, okay, we need, okay, to use in order to incorporate technology in our teaching. Because what I have seen here is, okay, mostly people talk about applications and how to use these applications. What are the features of these applications? But I think, okay, that the most important question is what is, okay, the underlying theoretical backgrounds? Because even if we are talking about technology, there is still, okay, kind of background. I'm thinking here about, for example, the task-based learning, for example. We can, okay, integrate it, okay, with technology-assisted teaching. And this, okay, methodology is called technology-assisted task-based learning. So I think, okay, the technology, in the absence of a theoretical framework or a sort of methodology, will be, I mean, something that is tricky. We cannot, I mean, control it. So we need all the time that guidance of the methodology, which is, okay, the basic, okay, I mean, foundation, okay, for the integration of technology in, I mean, the teaching through, I mean, technology or computer-assisted learning or whatever, okay, you have called it. So, okay, the question is about, okay, what is this methodology? And it should be based on theory, because as we know, okay, language teaching, okay, is not, okay, something that is random, but it has, okay, its underlying rules, it has its underlying approaches, methods, and it has been, okay, I mean, on the discussion for a long time, okay? For almost a century, people have been talking about different ways of teaching language. And I think, okay, that even, okay, with technology, we still, okay, need to think about, I mean, certain methodologies. So if you have something, okay, to add about this, yeah. Any question that you have, guys? All right, yes, you have a question, yeah, your question.
So my question concerns the use of Pratt in teaching word stress, for example, record versus record. Now, I've worked with Brett myself, and it can show the visual distinction between the two words. I do totally agree. Now, what do we do to teach students how they should distinguish between the two words, for example, is by assigning stress on the first syllable while we are talking about disyllabic words if it's a noun, and assigning stress on the second syllable if it's a verb, with the exceptions, of course, to have progress, and so on and so forth. Now, my question is, to what extent can the visual picture or the visual display shown by Pratt teach students how to distinguish between these words, for example, in general, like how they can learn where to assign stress exactly, if it's a verb or if it's a noun. Yeah.
Okay, if there is no more question, I would just give you the floor to respond to the first question. Yeah, okay, it was delivered by Professor Karim. Yeah.
The activities that have been used in the whole website are activities designed by Google Form. And so, for example, if we talk about word formation processes, for example, in morphology, the one that's assigned or the one that's designed for basic learning or the one that's assigned basic as an activity is when the students are given words, for example, and a list of word formation processes to choose from, which is simple. If students are well aware of the processes, they can very easily identify what's the process. And then the activity that gets a little bit more advanced than the basic one is when the word is given, for example, to students, and students have to guess or to write what the process is, or without giving multiple choice. And then there are some activities in which they have multiple choice answers. They are not provided with the key answer, so students have to do the activities as many times as possible to find out the answer themselves. For other activities, they are given the key answer. I didn't actually intend to do this at the very beginning, but some students said, we tried as many answers as possible as we could, but we couldn't find the right answer after all. So I had to think about attaching the key answer to some of the activities, for example, and tell students that you can try to do the activities as many times as possible, and then if you can't, find the key answer, so here you are. But only for some of the activities, and definitely not for the activities in which they have multiple choice answers, for example, in which they will definitely find or figure out what the answer is. Yeah. So I hope I answered your question. Now, I will respond to the second question concerning the methodology. I do definitely agree that while considering instructional technological tools, theory has to be, especially while delivering a pedagogical content. I do definitely agree. So in creating and designing the website itself, the Agile methodology has been used in designing the website, as well as other theories concerning the delivery of the pedagogical content, like PPT, for example, in which some content has been presented to students using YouTube videos, for example, and followed by practice activities. So we also have the task-based learning considered in delivering the pedagogical content, in which the students were first assigned activities in which they test their knowledge and in which they learn, for example, the different processes or the different components that are designed to teach. TTT has been also used in delivering the pedagogical content, in which students have been assigned first activities to test their knowledge, and then they were provided with videos or content or texts to go through, and then more practice activities to test what they grasped from that. So I do agree that it is important to consider theory, and it has been considered in designing the instructional tool. I guess I answered all the questions I received.
All right, thank you. Yeah. Let's move to Sir Mohammed. You have a question from her. Yeah, is okay the same response to the same question?
I would just like to add a comment, like as you have said, we have adopted task-based teaching. Now, I was teaching composition, so the form of the lessons actually were based on focus on form rather than focus on forms. So the grammar content.
Form and forms.
Yeah,
I
so there is a huge difference between the form and the forms. Now, the focus on form is a teaching actually methodology that teaches grammatical aspects in a spontaneous manner. So you're not planning to teach them. And this is what I have adopted using, of course, scaffolding. Now, focus on form is when you come and it is this type of explicit teaching. So I have used implicit teaching using scaffolding, task-based teaching, to adopt the call approach in my teaching of this specific grammar aspect that I have talked about. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your question. So your question was, to what extent or how can we manage or ensure that students can use Pratt effectively to develop stress learnability?
Yes.
Yeah, great. So actually, this was one of the challenges I encountered while conducting this research with the participants, because most of them failed to use it effectively, and after a very, after great effort, they managed to successfully and effectively use it. So first, I had we spent 4 weeks on training them how to use Pratt first, and how to interpret the visual representation gained from Pratt software. So firstly, you need, after they were trained on how to use Pratt, the next step was to teach them and to present the factors that are determine the place of stress, which are vowel, duration, intensity, and pitch. And Pratt provides the visual representation of these factors. For example, just by having visual measurement, for example, of intensity, duration, or pitch height, they can differentiate between stressed syllable and unstressed syllable. For example, when the pitch is rising up, it means that this is the stressed syllable. And one more example is vowel length or diphthongs, for example. And I noticed that most of IS1 students suffer with the word decisive. So most of them, maybe because of French transfer, they pronounce it like decisive. Probably it's the French transfer. So just for example, Pratt will show that the diphthong is much longer in terms of duration. It's much longer than vowel.
Okay, so thank you so much again, for these interactive and instructive presentations. And my last word here is that whatever we do with these applications, with these websites, we need to remind ourselves once and again that they are interactive, and the way that we should use them, they should be used interactively, because that's their main affordance. Their main aspect is interactivity and connectivity. So if we are using them just to replace teachers, as you said, or just post lectures, for example, post documents there, that's not what's called online learning. We should draw on this interactive aspect of technology just to facilitate the learning and to supplement the role of the teacher rather than replace him. So we come to the conclusion of this really insightful, interesting presentations. And thank you so much for your attendance, and I guess that we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you so much.